Okay, we're back again here in the glass bead game. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a Russian composer by the name of Alexander Scriabin. Um, he was born in 1872 and died at a young age of 43 in 1915. And his main work was something called the Divine Poem, in which uh, he intended it to be played for a continuous either 7 days or even an entire month, so that the vibrations of the symphony would vibrate out into the universe to create a new universe. Um, he believed that he was a godlike figure, um, and that he truly believed that his divine poem could transform the entire universe and get out of imperfection and limits and evilness, and that this would bring about a new, beautiful universe. Um, just reading out of Wikipedia some things, Scriabin was one of the most innovative and controversial of early modern composers. No composer has had more scorn heaped or greater love bestowed. He was somewhat hated because he claimed that he was a godlike figure. Leo Tolstoy once described Scriabin's music as a sincere expression of genius. One of the things he believed, and this might have been part of an insanity, of music is made up of vibrations, waves, and he believed that he saw in his music colors, which is also made up of waves. Scriabin had a major impact on the music world over time and influenced composers, including Igor Stravinsky. Scriabin's importance in the Soviet music scene and internationally drastically declined. No one was more famous during their lifetime, and a few were quickly ignored after death. In the 70s, for instance, there were only 3 recordings of his complete published sonata, yet Scriabin's work has steadily regained popularity in the recent years. So he was somewhat shunned during his regular actual life, and just has been receiving a resurgence in recent years. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see the Chicago Symphony tomorrow night, in which they are going to do the Divine Poem by Alexander Scriabin. A couple other interesting things about him. He had philosophical influences. Scriabin was interested in Friedrich Nietzsche's Overman theory, later became interested in theosophy. Both would influence his music and musical thought. During 1909 to 10, he lived in Brussels, becoming interested in Jean Delville's theosophist philosophy, and continued his reading of Helena Blavatsky. Theosophist and composer Dana Rudyard wrote that Scriabin was the one great pioneer of the new music of a reborn Western civilization, the father of the future musician, and an antidote to the Latin reactionaries and their apostle Stravinsky and the rule-ordained music of Schoenberg's group. Scriabin developed his own personal and abstract mysticism based on the role of the artist in relation to perception and life affirmation. His ideas on reality seem similar to Platonic and Aristotelian theory, though much less coherent. The main sources of his philosophy can be found in his numerous unpublished notebooks, one in which he famously wrote, "I am God," as well as jottings. There are complex and technical diagrams explaining his metaphysics. Scriabin also used poetry as a means in which to express his philosophical notions, though arguably much of his philosophical thought was translated into music. The most recognizable example in the Ninth Sonata, called the Black Mass. Tomorrow I'm going to see the Chicago Symphony, as I said, do his Divine Poem, his Symphony number 3, and just reading some notes or reviews of that. Probably the most intense and over-the-top recording I have ever heard. In my opinion, it is the best recording out there. The only true romantic musician produced by Russia, in the words of his friend Boris D. Schlotzer in 1919, Scriabin, a contemporary of Rasputin, was a loner, emotionally temperamental, and stylistically removed from the last czarist to whose number he belonged historically. In the Malerian sense, his philosophy, spiritual and physical, was an embracement of the world. He spent his hours in mystic contemplation, in psychic transcendence. He spent his day looking for ecstasy, the highest rising of activity, the summit. He spent his years loving womankind. He spent a whole life worshipping the private mysterium of an astral neosphere only he knew anything about. I will ignite your imagination with the delight of my promise. I will bedeck you in the excellence of my dreams. I will veil the sky of your wishes with the sparkling stars of my creation. I bring not truth, but freedom. So that's just a quick introduction to Russian composer Alexander Scriabin.